beautiful Easter Saturday where we find ourselves at St. Mary's Church in Mohill, which today is open for private prayer. As we pause and we reflect on the wonders of the Easter story, so we also enjoy the church and spend a moment as we pause and we reflect. As we enter the peace of the church, as you watch, we wish you a happy Easter, and we remind you that you are in our thoughts and prayers. The children of the Hunt School have done some beautiful artwork to decorate our church this Easter, and some of the adults have posted poems and done the beautiful flower arrangements that you see around us. We remind ourselves that the Lord is our shepherd and that I have everything I need. He leads us in green pastures. And so as we come this Easter time in the beauty of the church, then we pause to listen as we hear some words from Scripture of the Easter story, which Reese and Irene are going to read to us now.
Jesus prays on the Mount of Olives. Jesus went out as usual to the Mount of Olives, and his disciples followed him. On reaching the place, he said to them, "Pray that you will not fall into temptation." He withdrew about a stone's throw beyond them, knelt down and prayed, "Father, if you are willing, take this cup from me, yet not my will, but yours be done." An angel from heaven appeared to him and strengthened him. And being in anguish, he prayed more earnestly, and his sweat was like drops of falling to the ground. When he rose from prayer and went back to the disciples, he found them asleep, exhausted from sorrow. "Why are you sleeping?" he asked them. "Get up and pray, so that you will not fall into temptation."
Jesus arrested. When he was still speaking, a crowd came up, and a man who was called Judas, one of the 12, was leading them. He approached Jesus to kiss him, but Jesus asked him, "Judas, are you betraying the Son of Man with a kiss?" When Jesus' followers saw that was going to happen, they said, "Lord, should we strike with our swords?" And one of them struck the servant of the high priest, cutting off his right ear. But Jesus answered, "No more of this," and he touched the man's ear and healed him. Then Jesus said to the chief priests, the officers of the temple guard, and the elders who had come for him, "Am I leading a rebellion, that you have come with swords and clubs? Every day I was with you in the temple courts, and you did not lay a hand on me. But this is your hour, when darkness reigns." Amen.
So we find ourselves here today in the beautiful church of St. Catherine's in Fenagh. And we want to wish you a happy Easter and to say that you are in our thoughts and prayers as you watch this. So we are going to continue with our Easter reading from Luke's Gospel, which Julie is going to read to us.
Peter disowns Jesus. Then seizing him, they led him away and took him into the house of the high priest. Peter followed at a distance. And when some there had kindled a fire in the middle of the courtyard and had sat down together, Peter sat down with them. A servant girl saw him seated there in the firelight. She looked closely at him and said, "This man was with him." But he denied it. "Woman, I don't know him," he said. A little later, someone else saw him and said, "You also are one of them." "Man, I am not," Peter replied. About an hour later, another asserted, "Certainly this fellow was with him, for he is a Galilean." Peter replied, "Man, I don't know what you're talking about." Just as he was speaking, the rooster crowed. The Lord turned and looked straight at Peter. Then Peter remembered the word the Lord had spoken to him. "Before the rooster crows, today you will disown me 3 times." And he went outside and wept bitterly. The guards mocked Jesus. The men who were guarding Jesus began mocking and beating him. They blindfolded him and demanded, "Prophecy, who hit you?" And they said many other insulting things to him. At daybreak, the council of the elders of the people, both the chief priests and the teachers of the law, met together, and Jesus was led before them. "If you are the Messiah," they said, "tell us." Jesus answered, "If I tell you, you will not believe me. And if I asked you, you would not answer. But from now on, the Son of Man will be seated at the right hand of the mighty God." They all asked, "Are you then the Son of God?" He replied, "You say that I am." Then they said, "Why do we need any more testimony? We have heard it from his own lips."
Thank you, Julie. You can, of course, over this Easter time, come into the church and enjoy the sight of the beautiful artwork that has been done by the pupils of St. Caelan's School, just down the road here from the church. The pictures that they have drawn are to remind us that there is always hope. The Easter story reminds us that there is hope in Jesus Christ. As we celebrate tomorrow, because we're on Easter Saturday as I record this, that Christ the Lord is risen today. So come and enjoy the beautiful church, both inside and outside, on this glorious day. Take time to enjoy the beautiful grounds. You can also take time to come and enjoy our new reflective walk, and to enjoy the sights of the historic Fenagh Abbey next door. As you enter the church gates, we come to our new reflective path, which, as we begin, remind us to pause and wrap God's love around us. So as we continue along the trail, we come to our new seat and our new information board, and we are also reminded to pause to rest and reflect. Our new information board tells us the story of how the community came together to enable the restoration of the church and the grounds. As we continue along the path, we are encouraged to pause and breathe. Just stop for a moment, listen to the birds, and remind yourself that the God who takes care of the birds also takes care of us. We come now on our trail as we pause to say, Our Father. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, for ever and ever. Amen. And so as we come to the end of our trail here in St. Catherine's, we pause to remind ourselves that God is listening. In this busy world that we inhabit, grant us space to rest a while by the still waters of your peace, to hear the whisper of your voice and feel the warmth of your breeze within our souls. Grant us space to rest a while. May this Easter time, may you know God's blessing, his rest and peace upon you and all those you love. So we now find ourselves in the beautiful grounds of Farnaught Church, continuing on our Holy Saturday journey, where we are going to enter into the church for private prayer and reflection on the next part of the Gospel. As we come into the church, we can see it has been beautifully decorated. And we have some lovely artwork and a beautiful Easter bunny there. And as we turn and go up the church, we can see the beautiful church in all its glory. And we're going to hear now the next part of our Gospel reading read to us by Doreen.
The reading is from Luke chapter 23. Then the whole assembly rose and led him off to Pilate. And they began to accuse him, saying, "We have found this man subverting our nation. He opposes payment of taxes to Caesar and claims to be Messiah and King." So Pilate asked Jesus, "Are you the King of the Jews?" "You said so," Jesus replied. Then Pilate announced to the chief priests and the crowd, "I find no basis for a charge against this man." But they insisted. "He stirs up the people all over Judea by his teaching. He started in Galilee and has come all the way here." On hearing this, Pilate asked if the man was a Galilean. When he learned that Jesus was under Herod's jurisdiction, he sent him to Herod, who also in Jerusalem at the time. When Herod saw Jesus, he was greatly pleased, because for a long time he had been wanting to see him. From what he had heard about him, he hoped to see him perform a sign of some sort. He plied him with many questions,
But Jesus gave him no answer. The chief priests and the teachers of the law were standing there vehemently accusing him. Then Herod and his soldiers ridiculed and mocked him. Dressing him in an elegant robe, they sent him back to Pilate. That day, Herod and Pilate became friends. Before this, they had been enemies. Pilate called together the chief priests and rulers and the people, and said to them, "You brought me this man as one who is inciting the people to rebellion. I have examined him in your presence and have found no basis for your charges against him. Neither has Herod, for he sent him back to us. As you can see, he has done nothing to deserve death. Therefore, I will punish him and then release him." But the whole crowd shouted, "Away with this man! Release Barabbas to us." Barabbas had been thrown into prison for an insurrection in the city for murder. Wanting to release Jesus, Pilate appeared to them again, but they kept shouting, "Crucify him! Crucify him!" For the third time he spoke to them. "Why? What crime has this man committed? I have found him in no grounds for the death penalty. Therefore, I will have him punished and then release him." But with loud shouts, they insistently demanded that he be crucified, and their shouts prevailed. So Pilate decided to grant their demand. He released the man who had been thrown into prison for insurrection and murder, the one they asked for, and surrendered Jesus to their will. Here ends the reading.
Crucifixion of Jesus. As the soldiers led him away, he seized Simon from Cyrene, who was on his way in from the country, and put the cross on him and made him carry it between Jesus. A large number of people followed him, including women who mourned and wailed for him. Jesus turned and said to them, "Daughters of Jerusalem, do not weep for me, weep for yourselves and for your children. For the time will come when you will say, 'Blessed are the childless women, the wombs that never bore, and the breasts that never nurse.' Then they will say to the mountains, 'Fall on us,' and to the hills, 'Cover us.' For if people do these things when the tree is green, what will happen when it is dry?" 2 other men, both criminals, were also led out with him to be executed. When they came to the place called the Skull, they crucified him there, along with the criminals, one on his right and the other on his left. Jesus said, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." And they divided up his clothes by casting lots. The people stood watching, and the rulers even sneered at him. They said, "He saved others. Let him save himself if he is God's Messiah, the chosen one." The soldiers also came up and mocked him. They offered him wine vinegar and said, "If you are the King of the Jews, save yourself." There was a written notice above him which read, "This is the King of the Jews." One of the criminals who hung there hurled insults at him. "Aren't you the Messiah? Save yourself and us." But the other criminal rebuked him. "Don't you fear God," he said, "since you are under the same sentence. We are punished justly, for we are getting what our deeds deserve, but this man has done nothing wrong." Then he said, "Jesus, remember me when you come into the kingdom." And Jesus answered him, "Truly I tell you, today will be with me in paradise."
It was now about noon, and darkness came over the whole land until 3 in the afternoon, for the sun had stopped shining, and the curtain of the temple was torn in two. Jesus called out with a loud voice, "Father, into your hands I commit my spirit." When he had said this, he breathed his last. The centurion, seeing what had happened, praised God and said, "Surely this was a righteous man. Then all the people who had gathered to witness this sight saw and took pace. They beat their breasts and went away. But all those who knew him, including the women who had followed him from Galilee, stood at a distance watching these things.
The women who had come with Jesus from Galilee followed Joseph and saw the tomb and how his body was laid in it. Then they went home and prepared spices and perfumes, but they rested on the Sabbath in obedience to the commandment.
On the first day of the week, very early in the morning, the women took the spices they had prepared and went to the tomb. They found the stone rolled away from the tomb, but when they entered, they did not find the body of the Lord Jesus. While they were wondering about this, suddenly two men in clothes that gleamed like lightning stood before them. In their fright, the women bowed down with their faces to the ground. But the men said to them, "Why do you look for the living among the dead? He is not here, he has risen. Remember how he told you while he was still with you in Galilee. The Son of Man must be delivered over to the hands of sinners, be crucified, and on the third day be raised again." Then they remembered his words. When they came back from the tomb, they told all these things to the 11 and to all the others. It was Mary Magdalene, Joanne, Mary, the mother of James, and the others with them who told this to the apostles. But they did not believe their women, because their words seemed to them like nonsense. Peter, however, got up and ran to the tomb. Bending over, he saw the strips of linen lying by themselves, and he went away, wondering to himself what had happened.